Alright, in this video we're going to start looking at annuities. An annuity is just a series of equal payments at regular intervals. So for an example, retirement, okay, like an IRA account, that would be an annuity. Alright, so this problem tells us that we're going to have our periodic deposit of $4,000 at the end of each year. So that's how much we're putting in at the end of each year. Our rate is 4% compounded annually, and our time is going to be for 30 years. And so what we're asked to find is first, part A, we want to find the value of the annuity, and then part B, we want to find the interest. Well, the formula over here on the right is our formula for finding the annuity for compounded annually, where P is your periodic deposit amount, R is your rate, and T is the time. Alright, so in order to find my annuity amount, we're just going to plug in. So we have A equals 4,000 times 1 plus my rate, which is 0.04, raised to the t power, which is 30, and then minus 1, everything divided by 0.04. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to calculate this top part up, and when I do that, I get 8,973.59, a little bit around in there, and that's still divided by 0.04. And then when I make that division of those two numbers, I get a value of 224,339.75. And so at the end of the 30 years, by me putting in 4,000, I will have a total of $224,339.75. So that's the value of the annuity at the end of 30 years. Now part B says, well, let's figure out how much interest we made on the annuity. Okay, so to do that, we got to figure out how much we put in first. And so if we put 4,000, okay, so let's think about it. If we put 4,000 at the end of each year for 30 years, so we multiply that value by 30, well, that's going to give me a total of $120,000. So that's how much money we put in ourselves by putting in 4,000 at the end of each year. Now our total amount, okay, we found from part A was $224,339.75. Well, if we subtract the amount that we put in at the end of each year, well, that will give us how much we must have made from the interest. And so when I subtract these two values, I get $104,339.75. And so that would be part B, our interest amount. Alright, very similar to the first problem. It's at this time we're putting in $70 at the end of each month, and therefore our rate is 6% compounded monthly, and we're going to do this for 20 years. So our formula changes a little bit because it has to take into account that we're going to be doing this monthly instead of annually. Alright, so to find the value of the annuity, we're just going to plug into our formula. So we have A equals my P amount, which is $70, and then we have 1 plus my R, which is 0.06, divided by N. Again, N is the number of times it's paid per year, which in this case is 12. And then we're going to raise that to the N times T, and then minus 1. And then all that's divided by my R, which again is 0.06, divided by N, which is 12. Alright, so I'm going to calculate the top first, calculate the bottom, and then we'll divide those two numbers. Alright, so on the top, I get 161.7143. And again, a little bit around in there. And then on the bottom, we get 0.005. And now when we divide those two numbers, we find the annuity is $32,342.86. So if you put in $70 at the end of each month for 20 years, with 6% compounded monthly, your annuity will be worth $32,342.86. So now, on part B, again, we want to find the interest. Well, first we got to figure out how much we paid. Well, if we paid $70 for every month, so times 12, for over 20 years, if we multiply these three numbers together, that's going to tell me how much I put in myself into the annuity. And so this amount becomes $16,800. So that's how much we put in at $70 a month for 20 years. Well, we saw that my total annuity was $32,300. Let's see. So let's try that again. So $32,342.86. Well, if we subtract the amount that we put in ourselves, that'll give me the amount of interest that we had. Alright, so when I subtract these, I get $15,542.86. And so that is how much interest we earned off of the annuity for over the 20 years. Alright, this last problem is a little bit different in the fact that now we want to find how much money we need to deposit in order to reach a specific financial goal at the end of a certain time period. Okay, so part A says determine the periodic deposit that we need to make, and then part B, how much of the financial goal comes from deposits and how much comes from interest. Alright, so the formula it's the same formula, except now we solved it for P so that we could find that periodic deposit amount. So we're just going to plug directly into it. So we have P equals your A, which is your financial goal, which is in this case $140,000, times your R, which is 0.035, divided by N, which again is 12. Well, in this case, we're doing it annually, so my N is just 1 in this case. And so now if we divide that, all right, so on the bottom, we get 1 plus my R, which is 0.035, over N, which is still 1 because it's just once per year, and then 1 times T, which is 17, and then minus 1. Alright, so I'm going to calculate the top first. So 140,000 times 0.035. So now the 0.035 is just being divided by 1. So anything divided by 1 is just itself. So 140,000 times 0.035, and that gives me 4,900 for the top. Alright, now if I calculate the bottom, I'm going to get, so 0.794676. Again, a little bit of rounding there. And so now if we divide those two, we get a total of $6,166.03. Alright, so that's how much we need to deposit at the end of each year if in 17 years we want to have a total of 140,000. Okay, so now part B says, alright, well, how much of your financial goal comes from your deposits and how much comes from interest? Well, we got to figure out how much do we pay in ourselves. So if we take our amount at the end of each year that we put in, $6,166.03, we times that by 17, well, then that gives me a total of $104,822.51. So that's how much we put in ourselves from our deposits. So then if we take that amount and subtract it from our financial goal amount of $140,000, well, then that'll tell me how much must have came from the interest. And so when we subtract those, we get a total of $35,177.49. So that is your interest amount. That's how much of your financial goal comes from your interest alone. And then the $104,822 $4,822.51 is how much comes from your deposits.